I am honored to present to you Bob Perry, better known as the Bonefinder. He uses a GPR to go around looking for buried bodies. I'm going to tell you about it right now. You're standing next to him. What is that thing there?
This is a GPR card, ground penetrating radar. And what you're looking at is a cart that has a computer on the top, has a 3-wheel baby cart you see down in the bottom. And then this is a 400 megahertz antenna.
And that shoots a signal in the ground here?
That sends a signal in the ground. I set it up for 24 scans a foot, typically for 10 feet. And 10 feet under the ground.
Very cool. Yeah. All right, well, let's go over a couple things with GPR technology. All right, Bob, we all know how metal detector works. They sit there, shoot the signal ground, you can find metal in the ground. How does a GPR, ground penetrating radar, actually work?
Well, what we have here, like it is a GPR unit, this is the SIR 4000.
Okay.
And what it does, I set it up for typically 20 feet, and I can scan in the ground. The radar goes in the ground at 24 scans a foot. So as I'm walking across the ground, the radar is going in at 24 scans a foot. When it hits an anomaly in the ground, it comes back. So the depth of the anomaly determines how long it takes to go into the ground and for the radar to turn back.
So we're not really looking for metal. And not like a military. It's not looking like, it's just looking in the ground for an anomaly.
Anomalies are there in the ground, right? And we're looking for disturbed soil as well. Because a lot of times if you have disturbed soil, then you get an anomaly. An anomaly could be like a gopher hole, or it could be a pipe in the ground. It could be a coffin that's in the ground, or just even a large rock that's in the ground. Sometimes there's rebar that goes up and down, and this you detect rebar.
Can you tell the difference between a rock and a piece of gold?
No.
It's just an anomaly.
They're all anomalies.
Okay, gotcha.
Right.
So it would show a buried treasure box, though, but you wouldn't know. It would just be an anomaly. I mean,
right. That would show up as an anomaly that's in the ground. An anomaly tip, basically something like that. It would have like say I was looking for a box that's in the ground. As I'm scanning the ground, like I said, it's going in the ground 24 scans a foot. It hits the bottom of the box, it comes up the top and back down the other side. And what you see on the computer screen is a reversed U shape.
Just like a U shape.
But it's upside down.
And that could be a treasure chest, or it could be a body.
It could be a body.
It could be a pipe.
It could actually be a pipe in the ground. It could be a large rock in the ground. It could be a sewer line that I'm looking for, or whatever it may be.
So kind of, you got to know what you're looking for.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then the area you're in, what you're finding. But have you ever found any buried bodies before?
I've found quite a few. How
many buried bodies have you found that weren't? That nobody? I know you go graveyard and you go across there just to find the bodies, but sometimes you go looking for unmarked graves,
exactly.
Or like this particular field probably has a grave site in it. It could have a 1600 grave site here. By the way, y'all may have seen this before. We're at the 1600 site that y'all saw me dig tons of 1600 stuff all out here. But anyway, back to the bodies. If you were looking in here, you could find a burial ground.
You could, but to start off with, a lot of times before I get on a job site, when I'm on a job site, I like to walk the job site and take a look and see if I see any crevices in the ground, especially for old historical burial site. It looks like these are basically tells me that you got collapsed graves. Now, a grave can be collapsed down to like 3 or 4 inches. And that would give up an indication of the ground.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. Now, if you're talking about a recent burial, like maybe 1950s, and it has vault, that's just something totally different. Those stand out quite nicely.
They're big, right?
They're big. But when we deal with collapsed graves, basically what I'm looking at when I'm looking on the computer screen, it's not an anomaly that shows like a inverted U shape. What I'm looking for, I enjoy saying that it looks like to me like a plate of scrambled eggs. Yeah, just like scrambled eggs that are in the ground.
That's what's collapsed.
Yeah, everything's collapsed. You're not seeing any sort of. I might be picking up the skull. I might be picking up a chest cavity, but I wouldn't be picking up any bones for the legs and stuff like that. But these are all anomalies that would show back up on the computer screen.
So how many think you found?
Oh, I would say realistically, I would say probably at least 12,000.
12,000 bodies in the ground. Yeah. You are the Bonefinder.
Well, I've been doing this 22 years.
Well, that's why they call you the Bonefinder, right?
Right.
You found how many thousands of bodies?
20,000. About 20,000.
Buried bodies. The Bonefinder.
Yeah. But these are unmarked graves that I'm finding.
Right.
I'm referring to unmarked graves, meaning is that there's no headstone, there's no footstone. Somebody just calls me in and they'll say to me, "Hey, Bob, can you take a look at this area? I think we got burials." Another thing is that a lot of times the cemetery will call me up and they'll say, "Bob, can you come in because we sold a lot. We tried to put somebody in the lot. We found out somebody else was already buried there.
They went to go bury a body down. They dig the hole and they run into another body.
But there's no headstone. There's no headstone or anything there. Just the fact that they forgot to put one in. They forgot to put a headstone on. And the records and the cemetery records may have been lost, or they may have been destroyed in a fire or something like that. So a lot of times they'll call me in to remap the whole area and create all new files for the cemetery.
All right, Bob, I know you've been on a lot of jobs over the 20-some years you've been there. What is your favorite one you've been on?
The favorite job I've ever been on is the Lost Clipper, and I'm wearing my T-shirt of the Lost Clipper. What happened in 1938, there was 3 airboats flying around the South Pacific, the Hawaii Clipper, the China Clipper, and the Philippine Clipper. Well, the Hawaii Clipper had the latest technology of engine, and the Japanese needed that technology because they didn't have enough payload to bomb Pearl Harbor with their aircraft. So what they did was that when the Hawaii Clipper landed in Truck Lagoon, they for refueling, they smuggled 2 rogue aviators on board, and they took off. In the mid-flight, they commandeered the vessel, went back to Truck Lagoon, unloaded the 15 Americans on it. There was 6 pilots and 9 passengers, and marched them into a prison camp and interrogated them. And then what they did was that they marched them across the street, executed them, buried them in a very shallow grave. They held the bodies down with chicken wire. And then they poured concrete on top of them. That was my most interesting case.
All right, Bob. What got you into the GPR business to start with?
Well, that's an interesting story. Years ago, I was involved as a technical illustrator. And I happened to be in a cemetery, mapping a cemetery for somebody. And I noticed that within the cemetery, there's a lot of open spaces. And so I got thinking about this. I said, I wonder if there's any equipment around that could scan the areas that are open to see if there's any graves in there. And yes, then I got thinking about this. I remember when I was in Vietnam, 1969 and 1970, I happened to witness a company or some civilians dragging around this big piece of equipment, a big box around the ground. And come to find out what they were looking for was enemy cells in the ground. And so that was my first experience with ground penetrating radar. I didn't know it was ground penetrating radar at the time.
So they were you saw them dragging across the ground, and they were actually looking for tunnels,
tunnels,
enemies in tunnels coming on.
Exactly. Yes.
And they used to dig a lot of tunnels back then.
They did a lot of. They were tunnel rats. A lot of
tunnel, and they would drag that around looking for anomaly in the ground to show a tunnel where they were trying to sneak up into camp.
Exactly. And so I got thinking about this. I said, "Geez, I wonder what that equipment was called." And I got doing some research, and I found out, hey, it was called ground penetrating radar. And so what I ended up doing was I purchased the equipment, and I started scanning the ground, and I started finding all these anomalies. And this was back 20 years ago, and I decided to specialize in this field.
All right, I'm looking at a ground penetrate radar. What would something like this cost for somebody to get started in the business?
Well, the unit itself comes in 2 different forms. I mean, this happens to be a 3-wheel cart. They have other types of carts. They have some carts that will just go 10 inches on the ground. This particular cart with the antenna and stuff I have set up in it, this will go 20 feet under the ground.
That'll go 20 feet. You can look down 20 feet down.
You can look down. You can scan down into 20 feet.
Wow.
And but this is a 3-wheel cart, and it's ideal for working in fields. It's ideal for working in wooded areas.
Cemeteries.
Cemeteries, exactly. As you can see, it's a 3-wheel cart. It has a 400 megahertz antenna down below. And something like this runs for just the cart itself runs for between $18,000 and $20,000.
About $20,000.
And then if you want the software that goes with it, that runs another $3,000.
The software is $3,000.
But the latest software that they got now, I can actually do 3-dimensional imaging right on site. So as I'm scanning the ground, I can collect that data, and then I can look at that data on the computer screen. I can flip it around,
move it around,
flip it upside down, and it shows up on the screen. And that's good that's good when I have a client out there and watching me do this, and I can show them where the grays are.
Very cool. That's some cool stuff right there. But ain't cheap getting that now. Could I grab one of these and run off tomorrow and start using it and know what I'm doing?
Well, you could, but you first of all, I have to learn how to turn it on.
That's the problem with my detector sometimes. How do I cut it off? I forgot.
Yeah, well, what it boils down to is that it takes a little bit of time and a little bit of experience to going out and actually doing the jobs.
Now, when you buy this, do they give you any training at all?
Yeah, they do. This particular company provides 2 days worth of training.
Free with the not free, but
now you can take the training without buying the equipment. Sometimes they'll go up and they have courses that they run. You can take the 2 days worth of training and see if it's real enough for you to buy the equipment.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's my. But a lot of times, what happens is that some of they very seldom they don't touch very much on graves and how to find graves.
That's a specific type of.
Exactly.
That's like a doctor is specifics what they do. It's kind of grave looking for graves is kind of like
very seldom. I mean, most of the people that buy this equipment, they're looking for pipes in the ground. They're looking for rebar and bridges, basically construction sites that they actually use in the
and you know it's there. You know the big pipe. You're just trying to find the big pipe.
Exactly, and that's kind of what that's kind of like what it is. Yeah.
But you're out not knowing. In this whole field, maybe looking for a grave, you don't know where it's at. So you got to know what you're looking at on that screen to find it. I guess one of the best ways is on-the-job training, right?
OJT. On the job.
OJT. So somebody wanted to do it, get with somebody that's doing that type of work, and learn from the best. Is the way to go.
Well, what happens is a lot of times, a lot of these people that take these courses at this school, they'll contact me afterwards because they DPW departments or historical groups, they manage a cemetery, and it's a large cemetery, and they don't want to have to pay someone like me to go out there every day to do it. So they buy the equipment, they'll call me up, I'll go down there, and I'll go in there, and I'll train them on how to use the equipment and what graves look like.
Gotcha. Bob, is anything else interesting you've done with your GPR? Anything happen?
Yeah, I have a kind of a cute little story here. I don't know how cute, it's very serious, but I was scanning an old burial site, and I happened to uncover a World War II hand grenade. And what happened was it got caught onto the base of the bucket down there. And as I was scanning around, it popped up out of the ground.
So you didn't see it with this?
No, I didn't see it. I'm looking at it.
You just actually grabbed it with it?
Yeah. I look at it, pulled up, and I'm looking at that, and I picked it up, and I looked at it, and I said, wow.
You picked it up?
I picked it up,
a grenade, you picked it up?
I put it back down very, very nicely, like this here. I said,
real slowly, right?
This is my experience in the military. That's a World War II hand grenade. So anyways, it didn't have a pin or anything like that. So anyways, I called the local police.
Didn't have a pin in it?
No, it didn't have a pin in it. I called the local police, okay, and the pin could have rusted off.
And it's still in there, but it's come off, yeah.
So,
but when you put it down, it could have...
Well, I didn't know that.
Have.
I very quietly put it down and backed away from it.
Right.
But anyways, I called the local police department. They came in, and they examined, they looked at it, they quarantined off the area with yellow tape and stuff like that, and then they called the state police in. The state police bomb squad came in, and they analyzed the data. They took x-rays of it. The bomb people went out, picked it up, put it in a special container, brought it back to their van, x-rayed it, and then they took it away. I found out later on that it was still active.
It was an active grenade. You pulled up with the GPR.
Yeah. And what happened, the story I heard about that was that there was two military aircraft that collided with each other back in the 1940s, 50s, and it collided, and then this was some of the debris. Because I found other things here, like I found a clutch plate, I found a piece of a Jeep,
parts come
off the ground. And it just so happens that it has to be a grenade there. So
unbelievable, man. So you're lucky to be here, aren't you? That could have things that have gone off.
Yeah, exactly. So that was kind of an interesting one.
That is. All right, for those of you who are interested in cemetery mapping, Bob has actually wrote a book, Cemetery Mapping Techniques and Applications, and it is available on his website, and I'll put a link down in my video description if anybody's interested in that. Bob, you want to tell a little bit about that book?
Yeah, this particular book here is basically I drafted this book and wrote the book and illustrated the book for anybody that had an interest in cemeteries. A lot of times customers can't afford my services, so what I do is I wrote this book so anybody that's interested in this particular type of business as being, say, want to get into the business, they could buy this book, and everything that I've done, everything that I've learned is in this book. So anybody that buys it has the opportunity to actually go out and do what I do.
Now, somebody that manages a cemetery, they could buy this book and get their own GPR and know enough out of this book to know how to find unmarked graves.
Yeah, I give one of these books with all my customers. And the funny part about it is that they end up calling me to come back in and do some work.
To do it because it is a specialized.
It is right.
Do it so
they see that. But anyways, the whole book is broken into 6 chapters, and the very last chapter of the book. The very last chapter is case studies. I got about 9 case studies in there that are very interesting to read about.
And you can it shows you, like you can see the body, that shows you a body in the ground, or a cast, whatever,
right.
Anomaly in the ground right there.
And I got a new edition coming out later on. It's going to be for an expanded version of the case studies that I have in this.
Okay.
I'm dealing with. And there's homicide cases in here. And in the back of the book, I have sample maps that I draft.
Excellent. Who did all your drafting for you here? All your mapping?
Well, I don't hire it. I do it all myself.
You're a one-man band?
Well, I'm a technical illustrator by trade. If I can't do something like it, this cover is actually an illustration.
That's not a picture. That's an illustration.
That's an illustration. Right? This is actually one of the maps that I drafted, and I have playing the software, and I happen to turn it like this here, and this is the picture that showed up.
That's beautiful right there, man.
Well, obviously, this is what I look like when I'm in the field drafting. Right. This is my computer stuff, and this is the ground penetrating radar.
Awesome. Good stuff, man. Bob, it's a pleasure, man.
Enjoy it, Gigmaster.
Awesome.
Gigmaster.
Like I say, I got the link down in the video description. Interested? Appreciate everybody coming along on this little journey. We're hopefully going to be doing a couple more videos here in the next day or two on some real mapping of a cemetery, if the weather holds out. So stay tuned for that. All right. Appreciate everybody coming along. Don't forget to click like, comment below, share. What do I got to do?
Check the Gigmaster.
Subscribe to
Gigmaster.
All right. We'll see you on the next adventure. Stay tuned.